When telling somebody that their role has been eliminated, that their job is being terminated, that they no longer have a place in the company, you want things to be clear. You don't want the message to be blurred. And in a way, you owe the other person your transparent honesty. I'm Dawn, and this is Have That Talk. Now, the redundancy talk is a tough one because it's the one that's highly likely to spark an emotional response. You may have to deal with anger, with disappointment, with harsh words, with tears. And it's tempting to intervene to prevent that happening, to soften the message, to try and make it sound more appealing, to focus on yourself and how difficult it is for you to say this. But all that doesn't serve the purpose. What's more important is the preparation that you take before the conversation, because you'll be confronted with at least 3 different levels of response. When people react to the news by showing different emotions or even showing different physical responses, like going quiet and not saying anything at all. The other thing to prepare for is that the person sitting across from you will have identified very strongly with their role, and taking their job away from them does feel like an attack on their own identity, a collapse of status, a feeling of existential threat to their finances, their family, their life plans. This is a status threat that goes beyond ego. These are real lives and real impacts that will be reflected back to you in those conversations. And the third aspect that you might also see is a breakdown in the relationship. The sense of relatedness will just evaporate, because telling somebody that their ideas, their contribution, their services are no longer required opens up a huge crack in the relationship. So now that you go in prepared for the response, also go in knowing how you're going to communicate and get to the point as quickly as possible. Don't start off with some chit chat about how are you and how was your weekend. No, lay out the reason for the conversation, starting with the organizational context, how it's impacting the team, and what it means for this particular person. And then pause, because there will be a reaction. There'll be defensiveness, there'll be negotiation, there'll be an emotional response, and allow some space for that. Think of yourself as walking along a clear path. And once the other person has expressed their disappointment, their anger, their demands, then gently bring them back to the path. Yes, it is a difficult situation. It does feel unfair. But the decision is clear, and this is what we can do to facilitate the next steps. Avoid phrases like, unfortunately, I'm sorry, if I could do something different, I would, because all these make it sound as if the decision is negotiable, but actually it's not. So don't raise hopes unnecessarily. Also go in knowing that it's probably not going to be just one conversation, especially if emotions are high. It's worth pausing and offering a follow-up conversation in the next couple of days to talk through the practicalities. Everybody responds differently in those kinds of situations. And as a manager, you'll know which individuals will be more easy to deal with and those that will push back and give you a hard time. This is why I've developed the Threat Navigator. It's an online practice tool that helps you rehearse the conversation. So what you do is provide the context. You can either type it in or you can speak it into the tool. And then the tool will ask you a few questions, going through a diagnostic to understand what's going on, what your relationship is. And then it gives you the opportunity to practice the actual words you might say to the person. And the AI will simulate the response that you might get in return. Sometimes it'll step out of the role play and give you feedback on something that you've suggested. And then you can continue using those insights. But at the end of it, what you receive is a clear debrief of what the conversation could look like, some of the more difficult areas that you need to look out for, and some phrases that you can apply to bring things back on track. So I hope that you give it a go, that you'll find it helpful as a sparring partner as you prepare to go in to have that talk. Okay? I'll see you next time.